What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Vibe Check. This week we have on the lovely Grace from Unlonely, a company that's near and dear to my heart. Unlonely was one of the first platforms that I first got involved with when I was starting to make a name for myself on what's called Web3 social, and I've been following them ever since. They've had an incredible journey, her and her brother Brian, with some interesting pivots, going from streaming to more of a media company, Base to Solana, talk about things like LTV of a crypto user versus normal users, and definitely some locked in alpha here as well, which is starting tomorrow. So I had a blast. I hope you have a good time listening to it too. And without further ado, here's the next episode of Vibe Check with Grace from Unlonely. All right. We're in. With Vibe Check. It's been a long time coming. We have Grace Smile.
Finally Unlonely. That was the calendar invite that I got sent, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, you guys are a big part of my lore. I don't know. I've told this to people, but like I don't know how much I've stated like publicly, but like Unlonely was like my first like social experience in crypto.
Really?
Like, period. Yeah.
But you found us through Farcaster though, right?
Yeah, but like I wasn't posting. I wasn't anyone. I guess in some.
Okay. So you were on Farcaster, but you were lurking. You hadn't really like built social connections yet until Unlonely,
which is a hilarious title for it now.
Yeah.
In hindsight, but that's where I met Saeed. Obviously, you. I think my claim to fame is I was there for both times Brian cried on stream. I think the only person. I will take that to my grave as like my a badge of honor.
No,
but you're here.
Badge. Yeah. You have all the context and all of the lore.
All the lore.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, and I want to talk about it all with you because I think it's really interesting, just like as a story. I think it's compelling, but I also think it's interesting, especially as we enter bull markets and like people are building businesses or trying to. They are launching tokens, they are pivoting, and I think there's a big consumer thing happening. My lens is always through opacity and like zk-TLS, obviously, but you guys have been at this for a while. I think there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of interesting stuff. But before we get into all that, Grace, who are you? And feel free to answer that any way that you feel is appropriate.
Who am I? At the moment, what's at the forefront? Okay, I'll go into the bag. So fine. I'm co-founder of Unlonely. I've been building Unlonely with my brother, Brian, who is the unhinged character on the internet for going on the last 2 years, which is actually pretty crazy to think about. I come from like a trad tech background. I was working at YouTube. I was working at Google. I was in the Bay Area for like 4 or 5 years. And then I moved abroad and I was in London, did B school there. And during that time, sort of stumbled down the crypto rabbit hole. This was like circa 2020, and then have just never left. And I'm still a little bit shocked to realize that. Like sometimes I step back and I'm like, wow, I'm really still doing this. That's kind of wild. But I love it here. I do love it here. Like through the bear, through the bull, there's pros and cons to both. But the people have always kept me here, and you're one of those people for sure. Like long live the Erewhon water tasting moments.
We'll get into water tasting with some niche stuff that we got to do over at FarCon. But as far as what I brought you on, there's been a lot of interesting stuff in the Unlonely journey that at least I've been sort of privy to a little bit inside, mostly outside. You moved to New York. Mm-hmm. Which is exciting. And that was a very similar time. I'm sure a lot of it was coincidence, but you also made this big pivot from like Base to Solana. And Brian is unhinged, and I absolutely love him for it. I think we need more of it in the space. Yeah. And it was, let's call it contentious on Farcaster.
It was. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have to like rewind to the beginning of Unlonely. I mean, you were one of our probably first users, and like you were like reliably in the chat, I feel like on every major stream that we've ever had. And even if you're like stream, like you are chronically online in a huge way. And I definitely saw that as like the person who was on Unlonely, who was always like monitoring all the streams and making sure that they were all working out. So anyway, like for those who don't know, Unlonely started off as like a decentralized live streaming platform, like a Web3 Twitch is I think what we were calling it. And our first like 100 users all came from Farcaster, and there were all these. I mean, Kazi was streaming, Ted was streaming, you streamed for a little bit. We had GM Farcaster, like kind of the old OG crew, the cozy crew days. And we were like constantly searching for this like crypto feature to kind of to combine with live streaming that we thought would like make it take off. And to Brian's credit, I think he was intuitively like definitely in the right direction. Like he was all in on tokens before this whole meme coin season started. We were talking about creator tokens. We tried to launch creator tokens for channels, and we played around with that a lot. But I think from what we've seen with Pump Fun is like we actually came about it kind of maybe the wrong way. Like we went live streaming first, which is like a huge barrier to entry, definitely takes like a lot of like intentionality and overcoming maybe your fear of like not being edited or something like that, and like thinking of yourself as a creator and this as a distribution channel. We went live streaming first and then tokens after. So we like required you to have a channel on Unlonely and be live in order to launch a channel. And we thought, or to launch a token. And we thought that the context, like the added context of you being live and having an audience already, was going to allow for that token to maybe like have a better chance of success. Pump Fun obviously went like the total opposite direction. They were just like meme coin, shit coin, launch pad, and like just get as many out there as you physically can and just like make that super easy, gamify the shit out of it. And then later on, they added live streaming, which was interesting. And then also later on, infamously, they had to switch off live streaming because people were absolutely going insane and doing crazy ass shit, like just inappropriate things, violent things, all sorts of abuse, all sorts of spam, all sorts of scams. Like it's just a wild world out there with like user generated content and content moderation. And that conversation continues to be really interesting because, you know, with Zuckerberg being like, we're like getting rid of all of our content moderation. It's just going to be Elon style community notes. That's wild. Like TikTok getting banned and everyone, all the TikTok refugees moving to Xiaohongshu is also wild. It's like a crazy time to be a social consumer, which like everyone is. I feel like unless you're literally like, I'm hiding from the internet, I don't have Instagram, I don't have TikTok, I don't have Twitter, I don't have any of these accounts, like I don't connect with UGC in any sort of way, this is relevant to you. So I still think it's like a super interesting space to be in. But what we found was that like crypto definitely didn't feel super ready for that. Like we were really hyper focused on serving a crypto native audience. And I think there was like a lot of cool stuff that we learned from that. One is like the LTV of a crypto user so much higher, like the willingness to spend, the willingness to pay for a certain kind of experience, or even just to experiment, or even just to be early is like astronomically higher than any Web2 social user who like doesn't expect to have to pay for any content that they ever interact with or consume. And the other is that there is like really fun, like maybe speculative stuff or interactive stuff that you can incorporate into live streaming. And we're still really like bullish on that as a medium of greater closeness. Like you as a viewer, like Dawufi, like I didn't know who you were for, I don't know, probably like the first like 6 months of you being like in our chats, but we felt like we knew who you were, you know, and we felt that connection in a real way because it was like we were chatting with you in real time all the time. And it wasn't these asynchronous, like back and forth threads, whatever, you know, there was like personality and personhood behind it. So anyway, that's kind of like, I feel like that's helpful context to just like set the scene for what Unlonely was, and then the many pivots that we've taken to like get to where we are now.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. Man, there's so many things I want to talk about. We're going to try to get to all of it. So we'll go back to Solana in a second, but just some notes on what you were talking about. Because I just did one with Dan Huber that I'm going to put out later. That's not out yet at the time of this recording. But we were talking about like sort of like the democratization of like difficult things. And it always struck me that like Brian got really fucking good at streaming. Like he has a good personality for it, but it became like kind of a skill issue at the end. Like I tried live streaming, like I always knew it was hard, but then you tried and you're like, man, this is really hard.
Yeah,
But
it's
like
a humbling
demo-
experience.
yeah, for sure. It really is. But then it's like when you run into those skill issue things, it's like it's hard to upskill people, right? Like, it's hard to get people who are
Yeah,
really charismatic. It's hard to do those things, and like it takes a lot of work. And like you can put as much incentive behind it as you want. Like if it's not fun, and a lot of times streaming is not fun. A lot of the times, right?
yeah,
It can get difficult. So with that, there's like this pivot that you guys did to, I don't know, it's not quite a production company, but it is. There's like certain events that you guys are going on. So I would love to know. Well, one, I don't know, does that make sense? I feel like you're sort of democratizing the skill issue thing here, where it's like we're going to set you guys up for success instead,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that feels like a way stronger product. It's similar to what you guys were doing before. Like at its core,
yeah.
it is kind of the same thing, but the strategy or the go-to-market around it's like totally different. So I don't know, does that resonate? And is that also like if you could dovetail that right into the unlock thing? Or locked in. I'm all thinking token unlocks. Locked in. They'll be locked. They'll unlock
Opposite
later.
of the unlock.
Yeah, but so does that resonate? And like, tell me about locked in, if it relates to that at all.
Yes, that resonates, and I think you're right. Like I would consider us at this point more of a media company, and that switch I think happened because we started producing our own content in order to basically beta test the features that we were building on Unlonely and be like, okay, if we can like get high enough quality content here and get like a high enough threshold of people in the audience and in the viewership and people actually using all this stuff in real time, are these features interesting and compelling? And that was like through the dating shows that we did, Love on Leverage, of course. We had a couple seasons of that. And I think like, yeah, that moment, that definitely clicked for me in the sense of like, okay, yeah, like you cannot build a great platform and build all these amazing features without great content. Like no one is going to use it. Your platform will be irrelevant. And to your point, creating great live content is really hard. And then like also integrating like the features that we were building out, there's a lot of like comms to users and I don't know, kind of enabling them and onboarding them and kind of like showing them, really like guiding them hand by hand, or like holding their hand through the process of really trying to get them to use these features and integrate them into their content. Like it was already hard to get them streaming. And then to add on that layer of complexity was just like such an uphill battle. So over the summer around when I moved to New York is when we decided to like fully switch into like, let's take content production seriously and democratize the situation, like basically create scenarios where anyone can kind of just like be featured in it and have the opportunity to get a bunch of eyeballs, get a bunch of attention, go viral. And around that same time is also when we made the decision to move from Base to Solana, which was for me like a hard personal decision because like I definitely never saw myself as like super degen and like super like shitcoin trader. Like that's not my user behavior in this space, but I understand that it's like the vast majority of user behavior in this space. So it's hard to ignore the market, even if it's like I feel more, I don't know, maybe like culturally aligned to the base ecosystem. And I still feel like the vast majority of my network and my people are in that space. But you like, yeah, you can't deny that it's so hard. When I had close friends that wanted to watch Love on Leverage and participate, for me to be like, you need to create a wallet, you need to buy Ethereum, you need to then bridge that Ethereum to this L2 called Base. And then you need to like maybe see if your wallet decides to work because, you know, like on any given day, MetaMask, Coinbase wallet, whatever, like whatever wallet you're using probably will break, probably will just like the transaction will not go through. You need to refresh it. You're gonna need to like close your browser window, reopen it. Like if you're doing this on mobile, just give up now because like it won't work on mobile. I hate to say it. Like, you know, it was such a frustrating experience that it was just like the UX is still so bad. And like trying to get people to just like get to your product and have it all work was still so bad. So I think there was definitely some like some Solana pumping going on and behind the scenes in terms of people being like, this is where all the like novice users are. Like people who don't even understand crypto, they have a Phantom wallet and they're trading and they're like looking at pump fund coins. And that's like something that we're seeing. So between all of that, Brian's unhinged personality also was, getting him into hot water with a little bit of like cancel culture and PC culture. He, like, the more you tell him that he cannot do and cannot say something, the more he absolutely will need to do that. You
Well,
understand?
I mean, at this point, he's just gearing up for a presidential run. Like, he's like fully like it's his time to shine for sure. And I didn't wait to bring you on until it was Brian's time to shine. I hope that's clear. Everyone else out there hopefully knows that like I'm not that type of guy. But the Locked In show, I think it speaks to a lot of that. It's like it's sort of unhinged content. You need sort of unhinged people. You want unhinged participants, and like that is, I don't know. At least crypto itself, like I don't know. I think a lot of OGs or like hardcore infra nerds like have told themselves this story of like, oh, like we can just build the tooling and then everyone can do whatever they want to do. And it's like no, like tell like people want to like make it easy, make it fun. Like that's how like all the great products in the world are ever born. And I think we're sort of we're at a tipping point now where like you guys are like really primed for acceleration because there's all these new users for sure. I think there's a huge like fatigue in the crypto space with like, how has it been so long? And like, wallets still suck, right? Like there's this feeling in the air, which I think is great. And it strikes me as like a very like strong parallel that like what you were building before was, it was like a consumer product, but it feels a lot more like tooling, right? Like, oh, anyone can join, anyone can stream. And it like turns out like the thing that doesn't scale or like, you know, do the hard thing. It's like, it's actually making the hardest part more accessible, which is that like content generation. And there's tons of people like I saw, I forgot where it was. I think it was on TikTok, but like there was a ton of interest of people who wanted to do this show because they're like, they want an audience, they love crypto, and they have no fucking idea what they're doing. So like, hold their hand for that instead of holding them through troubleshooting like MetaMask connections and cross-chain swaps. Like it's not actually helpful to the product.
Amen to all of that. I think like diving a little bit more into Locked In as a show. So for those who haven't heard about it, we are creating a reality TV show that starts on Monday where we're locking 3 contestants into a house, like an apartment in New York for 30 days. And they are competing to like go viral on the Web2 social platforms. So like a combination of TikTok, Instagram. Again, we can get a little bit deeper into that because the timing is hilarious that TikTok is getting shut down and people are all freaking out about it. But I also am like personally of the opinion that the Supreme Court can make this decision, but they're not going to be able to like forcibly remove the TikTok app off of like 200 million phones in the United States. You know, like and none of that is going to happen overnight, right? Like it's like going to take time. So anyway, that's been a whole other thing that we've been kind of like thinking about and dealing with behind the scenes. But we have these 3 contestants, one of them being Lamb Chop, who is a Farcaster native influencer, graphic designer, super interesting, charismatic, cool chick. Like I'm just like interested to see what content she's able to like create in that. But yeah, we wanted to create like the environment for virality, which is like this format of like 3 strangers are thrown into a house for 30 days and they just have to fucking commit. Like they just need to do it. And then whoever, you know, and then they're motivated. Exactly. They're locked in. And then it's like, it's honestly like kind of a win-win for them because even if they don't win the prize, like if they don't win the $10,000, they still like walk away with whatever audience they built in that 30 days. So it's kind of just like this isn't, I don't know, like kind of an experimental zone where you are just committed to doing this and don't have any distractions and don't have any excuses to be like, oh, I don't know, like this is, I don't have enough time to do this, or like, I don't know what my niche is. Like, you just have to like hustle. You just have to put the work in. You have to see what works. And then it's like a combination of like consistency, good quality, having interesting POV, and luck. I think like that's how the algorithm works these days. So we're really excited to see where that goes, and to see how that translates into what the crypto users think, because this is like our first like foray into moving away from a crypto native audience. Like everything up until this point has been very targeted at people who already have wallets, already understand crypto, and already probably have been like following us for a little while. And this is like totally brand new audience, brand new platforms. We don't have like we're building our presence there up again from like ground zero. And also trying to like remove crypto terminology out of it. Like we're not talking about crypto in the context of the show at all. It's just like a crazy reality show, and people should just be invested in like what's going to happen and who these personalities are. But we think there's a way to convert that attention into something that would be useful for like what we're doing and ultimately our token.
Yeah, no, I feel that because I don't know exactly how to put this. You guys have like sort of minted multiple stars in their own way. Like obviously Brian was the first one, and like he has a large following now. And granted, part of it's because he's a founder and whatever it is, but like part of it's like he's like creating all this content all the time. Like it's super interesting. But like I very much like I met most of my initial Farcaster friends who ended up following me and ended up like recasting me, you and Brian included. And like that was actually a big boon to me, like initially getting any sort of following on Farcaster, which can be difficult. It was difficult. It's probably more difficult now in some ways. Like the numbers are bigger, but like getting people to notice you was still hard. It's always hard, right? And then we realized like, oh, it's so hard to like, it's so hard to like gain an audience on Farcast. I'm like, you guys aren't fucking doing anything. Like I'd sit in the room. It was like me and Brian hanging out. And then like, well, then like what happens afterwards? Like I come back, he's got like 2,000 followers, which was like a shitload at the time, right? And like he's like willing to recast me and like engage with me on Farcaster. It's like, just go try out some products and happen. Another one's like, I know Moon Poppy was like relatively well known, but I feel like he really had his moment on Love on Leverage.
He had such a moment. Oh my God, what an icon.
Yeah, absolute legend. And like now I consider him someone that like I'm like happy to follow. So like this is almost like value capture for you guys, right? If you can sort of mint new stars and become a platform for that, and then have the crypto economics on top of it, that makes a ton of sense to me. So I'm super pumped for Locked In. I totally think everyone should tune in. I'm going to do my best to get this episode out in the next couple of days so that we can sort of gas the hype on all of it. But with the TikTok thing, it's interesting. I'm with you. Like, I don't think just to get away from like work stuff for a second, like, and like ironically, I follow Mike Solana, the Pirate Wires guy. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but he's talking about like the U.S. government's used to like sort of like posturing and like getting what they want, and this again feels like parallel to crypto, probably just because it's human behavior. It's like fuck around, find out. Not only did they not go to Instagram and not go to Reels, they went specifically to the most Chinese app possible.
The Chinese app.
You don't want China to have my data? Fuck you. Like I'm gonna give them even more data. Like I'm gonna do it even harder, right? And then
my God.
Now they're like, maybe we gotta punt this 270 days, guys. This isn't going the way we wanted it to. And it's like that happens all the time. That happens all the time, like when you push to prod, right? It's like
I feel like I saw someone make a TikTok maybe or something, or maybe it was on Xiaohongshu actually, where it was like, did you forget that America is a country founded purely on spite? Like we will do anything out of spite.
It's such a good motivator, right?
It's so true. It's so true. Like single-handedly motivated by spite.
And I get a lot of like, and now it's invading other places. Like my Twitter feed is starting to become like hilarious clips from Xiaohongshu where it's like, here's all the gay sex acronyms that you need to know in case like these guys start like rolling to your DMs. I'm like, this is this is useful content. I'm not surprised this is going viral. But I love all that. Okay, cool. So Locked In is happening. Solana is good vibes for you guys. I love the idea that like we're trying to make stuff useful for people and like they don't need wallets, but like if you want it there, it's helpful and you can do things with it for your guys' token. The other thing that you were talking about that I have written down that I want to briefly is like the idea that like how removed you'd have to be to like not be a part of like social content or social awareness. Because I started realizing that in Chicago, at least, all the girlies are drinking tequila espresso martinis. And I thought it was just like, I was like, this is weird that like this is happening all at once. And it took my wife to tell me that it's because, is it Kendall or Kylie has it?
Oh, it's Kendall's tequila brand.
Yeah. So this is like reverberating into my life, even though I have nothing to do with that side of social media.
Right.
But I think it shows the power of like what can happen with a platform like Unlonely and the reach that you can get. So with that all being said, they're all getting locked in New York. Is it like an Airbnb or something? like
It's
what's
an apartment
how is
that
this?
we're like short-term renting. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then is Brian gonna like pop in? Can you reveal like what can I get some goss about like Alpha on like what maybe some people should expect?
The alpha, so there will be daily challenges to like kind of give them their structure, and then they'll kind of get rewarded based on their performance in the challenges. There might be some cameos. I mean, again, it's like it's 30 days, right? So this is a, I don't know, this is an endurance challenge, both for us, like managing it on the production side and hosting it, and like definitely for the contestants themselves. It's so different from anything we've done in the past. Like we are live streaming it because I think that's like an interesting component to just like be able to like check in on these people and see if they're like still mentally sane, like 20
Is
days later.
everyone okay?
Yeah, exactly. Just like sanity check, what's going on. And I think like people are always like a little bit voyeuristic, and everyone's nosy. They want to know what's happening behind the scenes. So I think like that having the live stream is like great validation for like this is actually happening in real time. But so much of the output is going to end up being like short form content. It's going to be their short form content. It's going to be us creating recaps of like how they perform in the challenges, and I don't know, daily progress, and sort of like checking in on the scoreboard and that kind of thing. So that's going to be all very new and very interesting. And I think being in New York means that there could be some fun cameos, but they'll be kind of like sprinkled out throughout.
Nice. So stay locked in. If even if you're not literally locked in, stay locked in. Okay. I don't know if this. Okay, I have two major questions. I don't know if this is like revealing too much, but I'm like deadly curious, so I have to ask.
Okay.
Are they cooking Uber Eats? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, there's a kitchen, and we are giving them like a weekly grocery budget, and they're on their own. They don't get to order anything. Like that's against the rules.
Okay. Sheesh. Okay. Well, I mean, that's exciting for me because I love cooking shows.
Amazing. Yeah. We want to like dive into content, to like cooking content as a niche specifically. Like we're just like looking at like what are the kind of broadest content niches that people could be interested in. And I feel like I want to do a challenge that's like make a Nara Smith inspired cooking video,
Okay, so yeah, I love the highbrow stuff, but I also have this weird sick addiction. Like I found there's this lady who went viral on TikTok, and she's just like, she got like the big jar of peaches from Costco, and she's literally just like drinking the syrup out of the jar. It's yeah, I want to see I want to see the unhinged stuff too. I definitely want to see what Lamb Chop cooks up. And the second question I have is, how many bathrooms? And like, is this going to become a point of contention?
It's one bathroom.
Oh shit! All right, okay.
Like,
this is, if anyone's out there right now, this is the clear sign you have to tune in to the show.
Yeah. It's up to them how they handle that. Actually, if you want some real tea, it's also only 2 bedrooms. So
let's go. This is the type
your ranking mechanism of some sort.
I'm so much. I would type before, like I was hoping that I'd get a little bit more info from you. I'm getting more hype. I hope everyone out there is getting hype as well. We're getting close to the end here, though. I want some final thoughts. Well, 2 things. We'll talk about like call to actions in a second, but like we talked a little bit before we hopped on. There's some Twitter conversation, especially with my founder Hirsch, on NYC versus SF. I don't know. I went to SF. I didn't really get it. I did 6 years in New York. I loved it. Agree? Disagree? We could just shit on SF for a second too. Whatever you feel about the United States. Go off for a minute.
Okay, so I am here to FUD on SF. I did SF for 4 years. It was good for like the first 2 years. I think I was living my little dream tech yuppie life. I was like on the little shuttles, and I was getting the free food, and I was going to the corporate events and like all that stuff. Oh my God. There's a Twitter trend today that was like, what is it? Like share a picture of you from a previous era or something like that. And I posted one of me when I was like working at YouTube, and it's so 2018 coded. Like it's just really, I'm like in like skinny jeans, a plaid blazer, a choker. I'm wearing a choker. Like, excuse me.
Go off, Queen.
Yeah.
Go off.
Oh, I definitely thought that I was slaying. Like, I was like, wow, this outfit goes fucking hard.
Dude, I was a trend on, there's like, I get a lot of millennial shit because I'm an older millennial, but like I'm addicted to Gen Z content.
Yeah.
And there was this trend on like, of course, like millennials don't know how to dress now. Look at what we wore to the club when we were 21. It's like business casual, like girls in like sweater vests, dudes exclusively button ups, like tucked into like jeans and like
Oh,
loafers. Absolute mess.
it's
Absolute mess.
embarrassing. But honestly, I like, is Gen Z not going to be embarrassed like 30 years from now or like 20 years from now, looking back on the shit that they wore to the club? Like, they're wearing some crazy stuff.
Well, they're gonna have a problem because like the boomers are really annoying, but they're not really mean. Gen
Mhm.
X is like mean,
Mean.
right? So
Yeah,
like when they start beefing as intergen, like it always skips a
yeah,
generation, right? When
yeah.
they start beefing, they're gonna have a hard time, I think. So respect to Gen Z for sticking it
Yeah,
out there. We
us
believe in
you.
you. I
Best of luck.
assume most of the unlocked locked in contestants all Gen Z. Do you know?
They are, yeah, I think they're like Gen Z to maybe like young millennial, like
Okay.
tail end millennial. Yeah,
Perfect for context. Well
good spot.
then you've got to cut off, I've got to cut off. I know the audience always has a cutoff, which is actually the most important thing. They can only hear me yap for so long before they get tired of my voice. So what should people do? I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna do my best to get this out before we start. So let's assume that I follow through on my promise that Locked In is starting in 2 days or a day. Where do they get in touch with you? Where do they follow you? How do they participate? All that good shit.
We are going like omni platform. We are going to be everywhere all at once. So you can follow us on Instagram, unlonely_app. We will be on TikTok, unlonely.app, or unlonly_app on Twitter. The live stream will be on Twitter, but also on YouTube. Like, we are capturing attention from anyone that will give it to us. But I would say primarily, I mean, if you're listening to the Woofy, you're probably a crypto user. So Twitter or Farcaster are probably your best bets. Like, we're going to be re-uploading stuff there. I'm sure Lamb Chop is going to be posting her updates there. But the point system is primarily geared at like follower counts on their TikToks and Instagrams. So that's where a lot of the excitement will be happening. Check in. I mean, this is also like, you can watch the live stream, but primarily the content is going to be through these like short form summaries, and so it's a way, I don't know, it's like less of an ask, you know. It's not like you need to show up at this time for the full hour, otherwise you'll like miss out on what's happening. Like, this is the algorithm will serve it to you, and you might catch the recap like 2 weeks later, and that's fine, and then you can like go back and binge all the content that's already happened and then catch up. So I think it's like a much more flexible user journey, but that's where you can find us, and I hope we'll see you there.
You'll see me there, obviously.
I'll see you there. I know that.
I bet you see a lot of the audience out there, my audience that I'm slowly growing. I'll put all the handles in the description so you can follow Grace everywhere. Definitely follow Brian. No offense to you, Grace, but
hey, I'm getting better at my Twitter game. Don't FUD my Twitter, okay, Dovi? I know you don't like thirst traps, but the thirst traps are working.
No one ever doubted that they would. Brian's got his Twitter back too. Follow me on Farcaster and Twitter. Definitely, yeah, definitely lock in. We're so back. That's a vibe check. Grace, thank you so much for coming on. This is a blast. We're out.